And to kind of start us off, Aaron Rodgers didn't play on Sunday due to the health and safety protocols, and has been kind of battling with the media for the past couple of days. The uproar kind of started when news came out that Aaron Rodgers has not been vaccinated, and of course you're thinking, it's his choice. But earlier in the year, when he was asked about his vaccine status, he said, "Yes, I have been immunized." And obviously now with the conflicting news coming out that he's not vaccinated, people feel like he lied or misled the public at least. Um, and amidst the whole incident, he went on the Pat McAfee show to explain his stance. And that's where it came out that he's allergic to some ingredients in the mRNA formula. But obviously, people are still angry at him, claiming that he lied and misled the public. So, Brandon, I want to come to you here first. Do you feel like Aaron Rodgers lied to the public or misled in any way?
Yes, absolutely. Um, I've always thought Aaron Rodgers, he thinks he's the smartest person in the room. And I know I'm echoing what almost every sports analyst has said at this point, but it's pretty obvious to tell that he thinks that when you're talking or when you're seeing him talk to the media. But I definitely think he intentionally misled people because he didn't want to deal with the media. Um, so by saying, yeah, I'm immunized, he knew that he wouldn't get any following questions because immunized is just a synonym for vaccine. Um, so he knew what he was doing. Absolutely. Um, the interview on the Pat McAfee show was, I'd say, pretty brutal. There were parts when you thought it would make sense, like when he said he was allergic to some of the stuff in the mRNA vaccine. That makes sense. Like if you're allergic to the stuff in it, you probably shouldn't get it. Doesn't make you an anti-vaxxer to avoid things you're allergic to. Completely understand where you're coming from there. It's fine that he sought other treatment or other ways to build up immunity. There's nothing wrong with any of that. It all comes down to the fact that he denied what was happening, and then when he was asked about it, said he was immunized and didn't explain why, and then blamed the media for not asking follow-up questions. Like, what follow-up questions? If I were to ask you if you've been immunized and you say yes, am I going to then be like, oh, how? No, I assume you got pinched with a needle, right? Like, I assume that's what happened because, as far as I'm concerned, there aren't any other ways to get vaccinated from COVID. The best course of action, and we talked about this beforehand, would be just to be honest up front. If he was honest from the beginning, he doesn't have to give us the whole story, just a quick synopsis on what's happening. Nobody's going to fight him on it. If someone asked if he's vaccinated and he says, no, I'm allergic to some of the stuff in the mRNA. So we're looking at alternative treatments. And through those alternative treatments, we are petitioning to the NFL to let those be an exemption for the vaccination status. Then when that gets denied, nobody's surprised. He's still not the face of anti vaxxer because he's still looking at other ways and he's allergic. And then everything is fine. But he intentionally misled the media. I know he's had a few interviews since then to sort of redeem himself, but he still hasn't apologized. He's taken responsibility for misleading people, but he has not apologized for it. So he is not sorry he did it. He's just taken responsibility for the fact that he did do it. And then the other side of this is the way the NFL handled it. Nothing that they did tells me that they're taking this seriously. The NFL said he didn't break any protocols, even though he was openly in a media room with no mask on, not 8 times in the 8 games he's played or the 7 games he played. So there's 7 to 8 different instances where he broke protocol on public media, and they said they couldn't find any situation in which that was the case, even though the world could. The NFL could not. So I don't know why. And the fine was a joke. Like, there's no way they're taking it serious. It's the same as a taunting fine. He got fined $14,650, which may seem like a lot of money to you and I, but relative to his salary, it's almost nothing. If you break it down by a percentage of salary, it would be the same or as if you or I got fined $5 per infraction of not wearing a mask or not having proof of vaccination. So the fine, like, They slapped him on the wrist slightly to tell him, hey, you probably shouldn't do that again. But $14,000 is not a lot of money to someone who's making north of or $20 million in a year. So the whole situation is just screwed up. The way Aaron handled it, the way the NFL handled it was a joke. I don't know what could have been said, but this is the most ridiculous thing that's happened this year, and there's been a lot of dumb shit happen this year.
Mm. Yeah, definitely ridiculous. Jen, what's your take on this whole issue?
It just seems like Aaron thinks that he's above the world at this point. Just given about how he before the start of season with his whole status and everything. He thinks he's top shit. He holds a lot of the power of what he does, which is true. He does. Especially with the organization as well as the NFL. But it just seems like he's too egoistic about everything that he does. He's out there trying to make a point. You know, Eventually that's gonna be a downfall, Aaron. If he's not performing well, or something happens with injuries or whatever it is, that he's not gonna bounce back, and he's gonna be a forgotten name. And also, just looking into the future, when they're choosing, Hall of Fames, for his class and whatever, this might be a major point where he's not going to be the first ballot going in, because all the people that are voting for him down the road is going to see this as something that only cares about himself. And it seems like Aaron never changed. Um, Especially a couple of years back, he kind of distanced away from his family and everything like that, and then now this, it just seems like he's his own world at this point, and eventually it's all gonna just shatter. It's a house of cards, and Aaron is literally lighting the matches to his house of cards.
Yeah, like this whole thing is not been a good look at all for Aaron. Um, at this point, I'm not even sure how you kind of redeem yourself from this, because it's just kind of a stain. The lack of accountability at first, and then even though he's taken accountability now, still waiting on that kind of formal apology, and his demeanor throughout these interviews just doesn't seem like a guy who is sorry, or who feels bad about what he did. So he just feels like, this is business as usual. Like you're still going to let me play football because it is what it is. Like the NFL isn't going to stop me from doing that. So, um,
I mean, what they should have done is, fine the Packers a couple $1 million, suspended Aaron for the rest of the year, and maybe get the Packers to lose their first top three picks, because it seems like this whole Aaron Rodgers thing is the complete opposite of what the NFL is trying to preach when it comes to the vaccines. Um, you know, Obviously, he's essentially out here, consulting with Dr. Joe over there, who advised him, quote unquote, on his show that he should inject horse medicine into him as part of a COVID treatment. But at this point, like, he might as well just inject it himself, and then he would have been, full on, quote unquote, immunized, according to Dr. Joe.
Actually, come to think of it, the NFL can't slap the Packers with a huge fine because the NFL knew about it too. Because the NFL knows the list of all the players who are vaccinated and unvaccinated, on top of which Aaron appealed the decision and then appealed the decision again. So they dealt with Aaron Rodgers trying to prove his immunization twice, get denied twice, and then go into the league and break protocol. So they're also in on this scenario too. They're partially to blame because how easy would it have been for them to give them a slap on the wrist earlier in the season, like, hey, you can't do this shit, because we're on the hook for it too. Because they knew the entire time. The organization knew, Aaron Rodgers knew, the NFL knew. Um, so they can't really like they can slap the fine, but it's immediately going to fall back on the NFL because they knew as well.
mm. So it's just Yeah, it's fuckery from the top down. Pretty much is what you're telling me here.